So I'm speaking with composer Gabriele Ciampi, who's renowned in his home country of Italy and Europe and home continent, and a prestigious composer and conductor who has been commissioned to do concerts. Has had the opportunity to even perform for the Obamas, another great honor, and has seen his concerts performed around the world. Gabriele, thank you so much for speaking today. It's so great to chat.
Thank you for having me.
So to start, I would love to ask, when did you discover music? When did it become part of your life? I'm sure very early on in childhood, but do you remember that kind of that point where you're like, it kind of
Well,
light bulb lit in your head?
yeah. Well, I started with acoustic piano, of course, because my family run a business since 1945. So my grandfather started this kind of business. So I grew up with acoustic piano in my house. So I started playing out piano when I was 6 years old, so very young. But it's something that I don't really like 100% playing piano. So I was more interested in a theory, in music theory, and in a chords progression, things like that. So that's why I decided to change class from piano class to composition class when I was 18 years old. So,
Oh, wow. So what
but
kind of music and artists inspired you when you were growing up? What kind of styles did you kind of gravitate towards?
well, as a classical composer, classical background, of course, I study a lot of classical composers from romantic area, like Chopin and of course Liszt. But I really like Russian composers such as Rachmaninoff, because Rachmaninoff, I think, is really modern, even though his music has been written years and years ago, but it's still contemporary music. We can find some chords progression that are really interesting to me, and it's more like jazz composer. So it's between classical and jazz. That's why I like Rachmaninoff a lot. So I grew up with the Russians, because I think Russian composers are not only about technique, but they have something special in their mind. The way they put chords together is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as you kind of as you grew up and you kept studying more, and at what point did you make this a career choice? How did you turn this from a passion to be able to be making a living doing what you love, doing from your passion?
Yeah, after I had great honor to perform for the Obamas, and then I released my second album with Universal Music, and from there I started doing concert in the United States and in Europe as well, and I scored for movie as well. That's something that I really like to do, and but I like to do it in an old-fashioned style. I mean, a long time ago, orchestra was part of the movie. Orchestra was inside the theater. So that's what I really like to do. I don't really like to use a computer a lot. I'm not a computer guy. So I still writing music for movie and for commercials and for TV using pencil and paper, like old school, because when you sit down on the piano, you can imagine in my hand had the full orchestra. So it's very easy for me to write like that. It's more difficult for me to write using computer and the software, something like that. So I started to make, full-time job in uh, 2014. I moved to Los Angeles in 2012. So I studied 3 years at UCLA, and then, in 2015, I started doing this as a full-time job, and I had the opportunity to play for the President Obama and his wife on December 8th, 2015. So everything started from that day.
Well, let's talk about that. That's such a incredible honor. How did that come to you? And I mean, how did you seize that opportunity? And what was it like? I mean, what was going through your head? Were you nervous? Was it, anxious? Like, what was going on?
It was like a really funny story, but that's what happened. And only United States can can happen. I sent my previous album, the Minimalist Evolution, to Michelle Obama. She received the album, and she, after 4 months, 5 months, something like that, she personally invited me to perform at the White House. So it was an incredible opportunity, and only in the United States, I have to say that this country is amazing because of this a kind of opportunity. It can happen to anybody. So I would like to see more Italian composer and European composer perform at the White House. So it's a really pity that there is no more White House for holiday this year. That's something make me a little bit sad because it was a really great chance for musicians from all over the world. But that's how it happened. I just sent a letter and CD. So,
that's amazing. Yeah, unfortunately, our current administration is not, I guess, one for the arts or any kind of diversity right now. So.
Yeah, exactly. I really hope that something's going to change because United States is very famous all over the world because the opportunity, right? So it's for me and for other musicians. Performing at the White House is like a dream, like American dream,
Yeah.
So I really hope the situation is going to change in the future.
Absolutely, yeah, we all do. But
Yeah.
so let's talk about, because you came from Italy, you relocated your entire life to the United States, to Los Angeles. What was that transition like? There's a lot of composers around the world who are probably thinking about, oh, should I come to LA or can I build my career in my home country? What made you have that decision to come here, and was it a hard transition? Was it challenging at all?
I think Los Angeles is a really special place because I know the city is not that interesting comparing to New York or San Francisco or other cities in the United States, but there is like a magical atmosphere. Everything is possible. And of course, the weather helped a lot as well because, it's like 9 months summer. So it's really great weather over there. So it's very good for me. And people with a smile, there's something that I went there in 2012 just for holiday, a couple of weeks, and I fell in love with the city and with the environment. So I decided to move. And I think for my career as a composer who conducts my music, I think it's the best place to live in because I do a lot of film scoring and I like to write for TV. But at the same time, I do concerts. Unfortunately, there is no such a great classical music culture in Los Angeles. It's more about soundtrack. It's more about movie. So it's totally different from East Coast. When I perform in New York or Boston or in Washington, it's different audience. Los Angeles is a little bit more difficult, but I really like to be there because the environment and the positive energy all around me.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, well, let's talk about your process a little bit. When you are coming up, I always like to ask composers, where does the first note come from? And I'm sure it's going to be different whether you're writing a concert piece or if you're working on a film,
Yeah.
which is, so, but in general, do you have like a process to kind of help you get that first note out? Do you try to look at images or read maybe a script or come up with ideas kind of, or sketches or anything?
Well, the process is a little bit complicated because there are no rules on that. It's more about the feeling. If I wake up with a feeling like sadness or happiness, but I start writing, sit down on the piano and start writing some melody. Everything starts from the melody for me. When you study composition inside the conservatory, everything is about a harmony. So chords first, and then you create the melody. But for me, in my mind, it's all about melody. So if I'm sad, I start thinking about something, and all of a sudden I start thinking about a few notes, and then I need to write on paper. That's how it starts. And it can be at night, can be in the morning. It's not. There is no special place for that. You can stay at home and just having cup of coffee or and start thinking about some ideas, and then you need to write down, and then everything starts from there. So for me it's very important the relation with my piano because it's like a partner, it's like a business partner. So when I talk to somebody, I talk to my piano, and then together we create the first few bars of the new composition. And it's a way for me to talk to people because, of course, you don't know me. I don't talk. I like to talk a lot, but I want to show you my feeling through my music. So it's a
Absolutely.
way to communicate with people. So I love to do concerts because when you go live, and when I'm on the podium, it's a way for me to communicate my feeling, everything I have inside me. So it's more about the language that I want to use it. So for a writer, writing is the language for me. It's like composing music, and of course I
Hmm.
need a musician because everything is in my head. When I write for orchestra or orchestra is in my head, I write down on paper. But then I need a real musician to, to perform my music. That's the most important part. Uh, so that's how I start. It's more about the feeling. I wake up with a certain feeling and I start writing down.
Absolutely. Now, and when you started working in films and television, and that becomes much more of a collaboration with your director, with your producer. Did you find that challenging at all to kind of be at the service of the image or be at the service of somebody else's vision?
Yeah, this is a hell because sometimes, producers, they want to be a composer at the same time. So they give you like 30 seconds of footage and then they want you to write the music that is background, that is not too, there are a lot of recommendations. So my point is, I really would like uh, in the future to score movie like 30 20 years ago. 20 years ago, without computers was different because the composer had to read the script and then create a melody, the main theme just reading the script. So thinking about John Williams or thinking about Ennio Morricone, old school composers. Right now is more about sound design. The director or producer send to me the just footage, and then I have to write down something, um, like a background music, effects, things like that. So it's not exciting at all. But if you find the right director uh, that give you like a little bit of space, so it's really interesting. So it's very important to work with the right director
Yeah.
because yeah, that's a key because sometimes with producer it's all the same. They just want you get everything done before the deadline. But when you work with a creative director, so you have more freedom and you can show him some ideas. But of course, it's a different process. If I work for my album or my concert, or if I work for a movie or TV, yeah, two different jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's talk about your album, Hybrid, which we were talking about kind of traditional versus modern, and you come from the traditional classical background, and you're kind of living in this modern film music world. So talk about what this album is about, and what was the idea for it, and what did you hope to achieve with it?
Well, this is like an experiment because I really, with this album, I would like to go from classical music to, I would say, new classic. I like to experiment a little bit, so to combine different styles together. And the title Hybrid is because the first song of the album is called a Hybrid, and it's a really combination between classical symphonic music and hip hop beat because hip hop, I really love hip hop from 90 because it was really a new style. It was like not so easy to do it and very, very interesting. So I decided to recreate that kind of atmosphere with this song. And we made a music video. We shot in Malibu, so it's a really interesting because I was sitting on the piano playing and then rock climbing because rock climbing is my passion. So it's an interesting music video, you know. Uh, but it's the same. It's a combination of different arts and different passions. That's the same with the music. I like that kind of hip hop beats. At the same time, I love classical music. So I was thinking, oh, maybe I can do something like an experiment and put this style together. We'll see what's gonna happen. And I like it, and So I decided to write like 13 tracks. Half of them are more a little bit more experimental. It's a fusion of different style. But of course, my background, my classical background, is always there. So
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Well, congratulations on that. That's such a
thank
amazing accomplishment.
you.
So kind of looking at the current, like look at this, kind of focusing on film music a little bit more. You mentioned kind of the state of the, like how you work with producers and kind of the negative things that might happen. But is there any like let's look at just film music today. What is the good? What is the bad? If you want to do a Morricone reference, we can do the ugly as well. But yeah. But what are you seeing that's good and bad that's happening today in not only film music, but also I guess the classical concert music as well.
Well, about classical music, unfortunately, there is no more education. It's an educational problem. It's not about the producer or director, but it's about school. Uh, there is no more. There are no more investment uh, in music school. So this is bad. It's bad for United States. It's bad for Europe, everywhere. Because now with the computer and technology, everybody can be a composer. So this is the bad part of our job. We study 10 years for 8 hours a day. And then if you buy a laptop with some library, you can be a composer. But it's not like that because to write for orchestra takes 5, 6 years of study. I started writing for orchestra after 6 years of composition of study.
Hmm.
After 6 years of composition, I started writing for orchestra. So it should be a difference between using computer and using a piano. But at the same time, technology is good because it makes everything fast. It's all about being fast right now. The business, producer, they want everything fast. There is a deadline, so they because of course they have to pay everybody. It's very expensive, right? So I understand that. So technology is good if you use use it for not for the creative part, just for like a technical support. So I have to write the score. Okay, of course I can use Sibelius and the software. That's perfect. That's great. But creativity should be inside our mind. So we have to sit down and playing guitars or playing piano and write the idea, and then sit down on computers and develop the idea. That would be the best. So I think that because everything is expensive right now and everything is moving so fast, there is no more time to study 7 years. So, that's why university, they create this kind of classes or courses in 2 years, 3 years program. But it's my opinion, it's too fast. Too fast, so you can be at the end, you can write for orchestra, for a small ensemble, but you don't have a background. And this is very bad. This is the bad part of what's happening right now within film scoring. But things are changing because I'm receiving a lot of requests, especially from Universal, that they're looking for composer with a classical background because I think now new director and new producer they wanna come back to the future. They wanna just like produce a movie or like 10 years ago, where the music was like 50% of the music. Uh, there are amazing movie team we can remember from John Williams, from Copland, from Ennio Morricone, and Philip Glass. And this is because music was 50% of the movie. If we consider music like a 20, 30%, doesn't work. The quality is bad, and we're not gonna remember any any team in the future. So I think this is something is changing right now, and I hope in the future there will be more music school and more investment in education because this is the basic of everything.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think even Spielberg says that John's music is 50% of his
Yeah.
films. And but yeah, and I totally agree with that because I think it is interesting because we see this surge of nostalgia kind of creeping up, And I think it's because once everything is the same now, and people just start hearing the same things, and we get, humans get tired. We want change. We're prone to want something different and new. So if people are kind of going back to the past to kind of bring it back and present it as new again. But it's refreshing when you hear a fully orchestral score or something with
That's why Steven Spielberg and John Williams work very well for more than 20 years, because great director, he left space to a composer, great composer, together is a really amazing combination.
Absolutely. No, agree with that 100%. So looking kind of at your place right now in your career, I don't want this to sound like a job interview question, but where do you see yourself in 5 years? Do you set goals for yourself, career goals, and say, I want to accomplish this, at this certain point? And of course, I guess the idea right now is to pursue film and television more.
My idea is I really would like to work with a director, uh, and I really would like to work for a movie where the music is 50%. That's my goal. Uh, I would be in 5 years, yeah, why not? Because I really believe in the past. So I mean, I really believe that future is in the past. So we have to start thinking about the way composer brought music in the past. So something I would like to do in the future. And using less instrument is possible. My music is very minimalistic, so it's not necessary to have a 60-piece orchestra to create an amazing movie theme or to create an amazing feeling or an amazing sound. You can create an incredible feeling just with the instrument. And that, for example, I wrote the solo for clarinet because I think that just one instrument is very deep and very passionate. So I really would like to experiment this kind of minimalistic work with some directors, some producers, and that's my goal because I think it could be a really great combination. Right now everybody's using like a big orchestra, big sound, but if we try to write just a few notes, but well written, I think is more powerful than having like 60-piece orchestra. So I really would like to try and work with a director producer to create like a minimalistic project, but not a short movie, but a future movie. So that's my goal. That's
Absolutely.
about it. Yeah.
Well, Gabriela, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far, and kind of bringing this your unique voice to this industry. And I really enjoyed picking your brain, and really hope to do it again soon sometime.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.